Good evening, everyone. I am hopefully have fixed all my mic issues. Hopefully all my audio is nice and smooth this evening. I've tested it from every conceivable angle. We tried a host of different things. We've tried everything from changing our browser to changing our mics. I think we troubleshot it to the point where we got it figured out. Please let me know if it starts to loop again. That was really trippy. I went back through and listened to it for myself. It was very entertaining. Not what I want from my audio, so I think I've got it fixed now. As you can tell, we're doing this very quick and dirty. Part of the reason that we kind of wanted to do it, we actually kind of wanted to do it this way because we want something that we can just pick up and take somewhere else. For example, next week we're going to be in California, so I'm going to be doing all my live streams and video recordings from a hotel room, which is going to be really fun. I welcome the experience of traveling and doing this. It's going to be a good time. So I will make sure that everything's working here. It looks like we have audio and everything. I only had a couple things that I wanted to talk about tonight, and then I figured we could chat a little bit. Let me pop out the chat. There we go. Awesome. So I can see what you guys are saying as you say it. This screen gets cluttered very quickly, but hopefully we'll get a few people tuned in and see what everybody is thinking on this fine Friday night. It is a beautiful autumn day, at least where I am. Let me edit my privacy. There we go. Okay, that's why we didn't have anybody. Okay, so I am very excited for this evening. I've tested everything and I think that our audio should be on point. I'm really optimistic that we've got it worked out. We've tested every conceivable thing and I think we should be good to go. But if you do see any more max headroom style audio, let me know immediately as soon as you see it and I will try to figure out what's going on this time. So part of the reason we wanted to do it this way, I think I mentioned this before, but we really wanted it to be kind of quick and dirty. We wanted to be able to take it from place to place and make it work in any situation, which is going to be tested next week when we go out of town. We're going to be in California for a week for Andy's work, and we're going to be kind of figuring out how to do it from there. So I'll be recording videos and live streaming from a hotel room. Hopefully we have good enough internet. I'm really crossing my fingers for that. I might have to work something out with Andy's work and see if we can find a good place to do it from. Chester says hello, hello, hello. Okay, so we'll wait a few minutes for a few more people to get in here. I don't know about you guys, but we are having beautiful autumn weather over here. I'm really enjoying my fall walks. Where in California is going to be San Diego, not San Francisco, not LA. So probably one of my favorite parts of California, at least in that central southern part of the state. I really want to get up to the northern part of the state and see what's up there and see if any of our awesome people are doing interesting things up there, because I hear good things about the northern part of the state for sure and would love to see it for myself. I know that state is so beautiful. It's really kind of unfair how co-opted it's become. Kind of the same is true for Oregon and Washington, unfortunately. I need to learn more about Spokane. That's something that came out in the last live stream. Gotta check it out. So today I'm going to do something a little bit, good luck with the hotel internet. Yeah, I know, that's going to be fun. Wish me the best. I might have to try to hook it up to my phone or something. I don't know how that's going to work. So today we're going to go through and we're going to figure out who our opposition is, because this is something I tweeted out earlier today, and I thought that it was a really good summary of everything I think about this. This is something, I keep going back to this, something I mentioned in the October of 2020, I think it was. Wow, has it really been that long? We had an event with Timcast and we went to this pool hall, which was so fun. We packed it with 200 people. And when I finally got a chance to speak, I said, you know what you guys should gather from being here with all these cool people this evening? If anyone tries to tell you that you are all alone in what you believe, you know that they're telling you a lie. And this is something that I emphasized again today. And this is something that I really want to drive home because it's so important. I think once we figure that out, that's going to revolutionize our view of the mainstream media, politicians, and our own neighbors. So let's look at what I tweeted, because I feel like I summarized it well there, probably better than I do verbally. So I said, the media wants you to think you're all alone. They're lying. The media wants you to think your neighbors are your enemies. They're lying. The media wants, that's my typo that I promise in every tweet. The media wants you to think that they're the sole source of truth. They're not. They're capitalizing on the division they cause. And I chose those words very carefully because mainstream media earns money by developing disenchantment and developing division. This is how they get your clicks. We know this is the case. Fury generates clicks more than anything else. Part of the reason I suspect that my videos are always going to have like a mild to low number of views is because I'm not going to choose to use anger to gather clicks, likes, views, whatnot. That is not the way I want to go. I want to focus on positive features of the world around us. I want to make sure that we know exactly what position we're pointed in and what we're striving for, because we don't want a negative response to everything. We want a positive response. We want to figure out exactly what we're fighting for and why. So I think my tweet is a relatively good summary of that. So I talked a little bit as well about how important it is to separate the media and their acolytes from our neighbors. And I pointed out regular people do not trust journalists, and a majority of people do not think politics is a good way to judge whether someone is a good person. So let me open this from Gallup, and we'll look at that in a minute. It's also helpful to know that according to the New York Times Siena polling, 81% of people think the government serves the elite, not the regular person. Monocle emoji. I will never forsake my emojis. I don't care what Matt Walsh says. I appreciate them. They add something to your verbal communication that is not always there, and I think they're necessary to communicating properly on Twitter. It is not us against each other. That is what they want us to think, and then I shared the article that I wrote on my Substack, which we've already gone over. So one of the things that Tim used to like to mention was that there was a comic that came out right around Occupy Wall Street, and this is the closest I could find to it, and he's saying put it all in pepper spray. But Tim was talking about a political cartoon where the guy was in his fancy rich guy swanky office while the Occupy protesters were outside, and he was saying something along the lines of introduce the concept of social justice or something. He's like, I've had enough of them yelling at us because we're the powerful elite. I want them yelling at each other because of, for example, the color of their skin or their gender. I thought that was such a fascinating concept, but I did not think we followed through on it, because my tweet here is the culmination of that idea. They want you to believe that your neighbors are your enemies. They want you to believe that people of different colors, different genders, different religions, people who disagree with you politically are your enemy. This is not correct. This is abundantly clear, and we need to keep this in mind. Who our enemies are actually. Okay, so I have a list of them, which you're going to love. I would say right at the top of the list is the media. They divide us. They have ultimately become state media because it's very clear to anyone who's actually objectively observing the news that there's such a clear and present bias in how they deliver current events. They can't say anything, they can't break any kind of news without putting a left-leaning spin on it. It's toxic to see, and it's very clear, very present. Also at the top of this list are politicians who use their votes and fail to deliver on their promises on a regular basis. That's just par for the course. We know politicians do this. It's very almost dull at this point. It's very repetitive. Why do they do this? Why do they lie to us and then fail to deliver? It's because they want power. And this is a theme that we're going to see with all of these people who we consider our actual opposition. Another aspect of that opposition is the permanent state, which is something that we saw with Trump's administration. The people who never have to worry about being fired, the bureaucracy, the people who are like making the choices behind the scenes without anyone ever seeing them, who have zero accountability. They are a serious source of opposition to people who want an actual country and who hate the division. And finally, and this is hardest to grasp, I think, and this, somebody mentioned BlackRock and ESG, and that's a complicated topic. But the last point that I have here is those who want our kids. And I include teachers' unions, and I include, Drag Queen Story Hour in this. And it's possible that BlackRock is behind some of that stuff. We know George Soros is kind of a problem with that because it appears he's an active Marxist disruptor. He's very, very subtle about it though, and he gets in and he helps win all these elections for like George Gascon in LA, And some of these people who no one ever even thinks about. Everybody always thinks about the president. Very few people think about the district attorney. And if you want to make a real difference in the way a city is run, you don't go for the president of the United States of America. You go for the district attorney, and you change things like cashless bond or whatever it's called, bail. What's it called? Cash-free bail or something, where you're trying to reduce the amount of money to get rid of, to get somebody out of jail. And I want to re-emphasize that our enemies are not our neighbors, people of other races, people of other religions, people who disagree with us politically. That's why we have free speech. And I really want to drive this home too. I'm not going to go super long on this, but the whole reason that we have a First Amendment is not so that we can hear the most popular ideas and the most commonly accepted speech. It is so that we can hear the controversial opinions so that people can say them without fear of reprisal. And I've mentioned this before, but we all know that it is not actually illegal to be racist. It just feels illegal because there is so much pressure against it. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There certainly should be pressure against viewing people of other races as lesser than or inferior, people of other religions as being out to get you. But we chose to put into our Constitution that every person has the opportunity to say what they believe and has the freedom to worship free of the impetus of the state. And I think that's crucial to remember. And it's hard, I know. This is a little bit, I remember I got into it on Twitter about war crimes when the Ukraine war was first starting, because I was seeing, it's very much the fog of war and we don't really know what's going on for sure, but I kept seeing these stories about Ukrainian soldiers who were abusing Russian prisoners of war. And I said, this is not okay. This is never okay. I don't care what side you are on. And people would tweet at me and they would say things like, well, imagine if it was your home and your family or your brothers. And I'm like, I don't care. The reason that we have laws, the reason that we have an understanding about crimes committed, especially during war against people who are hamstrung by being prisoners, is because there is a tendency, we know what human nature is. We know there's a tendency to be like, okay, I've got you where I want you and now you're going to suffer. It's not a positive. We need to hold each other to a high standard. In the same way that we hold ourselves to the same standard when we say, you get free speech even though I don't like your speech. I forget who it was that said it, but that I don't like what you have to say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. I think that's an old quote. You guys can fact check me on that for sure. But I just wanted to drive that home because I think that part of the trouble with the whole Civil War dialogue is that it's very nebulous who exactly we're up against. And we kind of we're kind of like a loose fire hose, we're like, okay, well, we don't like these people, we don't like these people, and they're out to get us, blah, 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 and there's going to be a civil war, and there won't be a power grid or whatever. And I'm like, I don't think that's what's going to happen, because the man who's helping run the power grid is the man who lives down the street from you. And the person who is helping keep gas at the gas pump is the person who lives, the person who goes to church with you, or whatever. Someone you may disagree with on politically, but at the end of the day, you, for example, both have kids, you both have pets, you live in the relatively same vicinity or whatever. Somebody said Voltaire said that, I think. I'm not sure. But did you see the BlackRock ads on Fox News? I believe that ads are everywhere, including on Fox News. Fox News has been kind of interesting because I think it was Ned Ryan who was, they were talking about monkeypox, and the Fox hostess shut him down real quick when he alleged correctly that the source of the monkeypox was politically incorrect. She didn't like that. Super busy and can't stay. I just wanted to stop in and wish you well. Stay strong. God bless you. Thank you. Well, enjoy your chores or whatever you're up to. What do you think are some answers to the problems with government? I think that people need to be, I think that civics should be taught, probably one of the most important courses that we teach our kids in school. And I'm hoping that after the pandemic, a lot more parents are going to be interested and invested in their kids' education to the point where they're maybe homeschooling their kids or sending them to a charter Christian Catholic school. And I really think that we emphasize the role of civics in their education. We need to teach them exactly how the government was intended to operate, because the way the government operates now is not the way it was intended to work. I remember learning about all the various checks and balances that were supposed to be in place, and I remember thinking, wow, this is so interesting, it's so cool. It makes it seem like it would be really hard to get anything done. And of course, my civics teacher then went on to say, if there's a war, for example, Congress has to declare it. If president can do X, Y, and Z. I personally need to revisit all this stuff myself. I think that if we help people figure out the way that the government was supposed to be, that we could help turn this country around. And I honestly believe that this comes right down to teaching your kids how it's supposed to work. Teaching them to respect and appreciate the founding fathers. Teaching them that they were geniuses, because they were. Some of these founding fathers who signed the Declaration of Independence were like 22, 23 years old. They had very little real life experience. And then you had just mega geniuses like Benjamin Franklin, who were all around Renaissance man. Absolutely, heroic in nature and truly role models. We lack people like that anymore in general. I've only heard of and met a few people who were like really, really role models. Very, very rare. And I think that those people should be taught. Their thinking should be taught thoroughly. We should teach them to appreciate every single, founding father for all their different pros and cons. Like the founding fathers who wanted more power and the founding fathers who wanted less. And, they argued about all of this stuff. And what they came up with at the end of the day was a series of documents, like the Federalist Papers and whatnot, where they genuinely understood human nature. And the fact that I think the American government has worked as well as it has for as long as it has is at least partly because they understood what people are like. And I remember one of their quotes is, "We are not a body of angels governing angels. We are men governing men." And we need to take that into consideration. That's why we had checks and balances. That's why we have the separation of powers. And it's really a neat system. It's actually kind of poetic the way it works together. It's kind of musical, and you have all these different, functions that each branch serves, and you have all these different powers and, checks that they have. They hold checks on each other. Fascinating. I do think that that's the way to save the U.S. government, and I do think that the U.S. government is something worth saving. It's part of the reason I'm not an anarchist. I think that the American experiment is one of the most amazing that we have yet seen. And I know that democracy isn't the ideal, but I think that the democratic republic we have is probably the single best form of government we have yet seen. We need to prevent the corruption. We need to get rid of the permanent state. We need to figure out ways to handle some of those things that have too much power, because if there's anything the founding fathers knew, it was that unchecked, unaccountable power was a serious problem and would result in nothing but chaos and misery and eventually a return to authoritarianism, which is nothing that any of us want. So I just wanted to clear that up and kind of cement that. I think that's really going to be a theme going forward, because I really want to drive home that we're not at war with the people who live in our communities. We're not at war with a man who brings us our, mail. We don't dislike the people who run our, power grid or whatever. The more we know about all this stuff, the better. Honestly, we need to know how these things work. We need to appreciate and respect the people who deliver these things for us. We need to, have a good dose of gratitude. I really think that that's part of the way forward at the end of the day. But I don't think that the current right-wing kind of dialogue about how there's going to be a civil war is especially useful if we're not talking about who we're actually up against. And at the end of the day, we really do have enemies, and we need to understand that we can't just be like I said earlier, like the wild and crazy fire hose just spraying around at anybody. We need to exactly focus our efforts against these people, like the mainstream media. Oh, I did want to talk about that before we go. Okay, here we go. So this is from Gallup. Americans' trust in media remains near record low. Let me see when this is from. It's always good to check your dates before you get started. Okay, this is actually from just a couple days ago, so that's good. So it says 34% have a great deal or a fair amount of confidence in media. Oof, that's a lot higher than I would have expected. 38% with no trust at all outpaces great deal / fair amount for the first time. Oh my gosh. 70% of Democrats, 14% of Republicans, and 27% of independents trust the media. That's crazy. I don't think I've ever seen a divide like that in my life. Let's see. At 34%, Americans' trust in the mass media to report the news fully, accurately, and fairly is essentially unchanged from last year and just 2 points higher than the lowest that Gallup has recorded in 2016 during the presidential campaign. Just 7% of Americans have a great deal of trust and confidence in the media, and 27% have a fair amount. Meanwhile, 28% of US adults say they do not have very much confidence, and 38% have none at all in newspapers, TV, and radio. Notably, this is the first time that percentage of Americans with no trust at all in the media is higher than the percentage with great deal or a fair amount combined. That's really interesting. Look at how it's declined since the 70s. Holy cow. Looks like it kind of peaked in 1976, and then it just started dropping. 97, sank in 2004. I would be interested to know what exactly was happening, like in 2008, Obama's election, and 2012. Yep. And then it dropped, in 2016. I think what happened in 2016 was that people were doing things like watching President Trump speaking, campaigning, and then they would watch what the media said about it. And most of the people I ever met who had changed their minds about Donald Trump did so because they just watched one of his actual speeches. And then they saw what the media was saying about it, and it blew their minds. And I was like, this is what they're doing all the time. They do this with everything. They're so clearly slanted. And I remember trying to tell those people, like, this is really, like, I'm glad that you noticed it in this instance, but this is what they've been doing for decades. As I recall, we have had newspapers that have encouraged us to get into war. There are people who lied on behalf of the USSR, who lied about, I think they lied about concentration camps. No, it's just the USSR, I think. It's insane to me. They just lie. This is just what they do for a living. And I feel like they were kind of genius. They were the first ones to figure out that anger is what gets people wound up. These data are from a September 1st through 16th Gallup poll, which in addition to low rating for the fourth estate, also found weak confidence ratings for the three branches of government. No kidding. Remember what I was just saying, how there were supposed to be all these checks and balances in place, and they are no longer. No wonder people don't approve of any of them. The percentage of Americans with a great deal or fair amount of trust in the media has not been at a majority level since 2003, although before that, in 3 readings in the 1970s and 7 readings between 1997 and 2003, it was the norm. The public's confidence rating for the media has averaged 42% since 2004. Partisan divide in media persists. Yeah, so this is tribalism in action. Americans' trust in the media remains sharply polarized along the partisan lines, with 70% of Democrats, 14% of Republicans, and 27% of independents saying they have a great deal or fair amount of confidence, as we know. There has been a consistent double-digit gap in trust between Democrats and Republicans since 2001. Interesting timing. That gap has ranged from 54 to 63 percentage points since 2017. It's gotten way worse since Trump was in office. There are several notable findings in the degrees of trust registered by partisans. For the third straight year, the majority of Republicans indicate that they have no trust at all in the media. This figure jumped 10 percentage points in 2020 and has been at or near 60% since then. Holy cow. This year, 57% say they do not have any confidence, while 29% say they don't have very much. At 27%, independents' confidence is at the lowest point in the trend. This is also the first time that it has fallen below 30%. Meanwhile, 41% of independents say they have no trust at all, and 32% do not have very much. While a great deal, fair amount of confidence readings among Democrats has never fallen below the majority level, the proportion with a great deal of trust has not topped 26% and is currently well below that at 18%. Wow. That's crazy. So even among like hard-bitten Democrats, they really don't trust the media a great deal. 18% trust the media a great deal. 52%, a fair amount. Okay, that makes sense. So one thing I've noticed with the media is that when they're telling you things that you want to hear, it's so much easier to trust them. It gives you a lack of cognitive dissonance, and you're just like, okay, this is the way it should be, because the way I want things to be and the way they're telling me things are aligned, and I feel like the world is at one. It's okay. So I don't want to excuse them, but I will say that it makes sense to me that they want to go along with this to get along. Part of the problem with the media right now is that it has become a form of state media, as I mentioned earlier, and I think that might be why Democrats like it right now, because their party is in power. Partisan trust mass media by subgroup. All right, we got ages. Okay, so older Democrats have the greatest likelihood to believe it. Wow, yeah. Political ideology. Huh. Democrats and moderates. High, relatively high. Interesting. Figures represent percentages of each group with a great deal or fair amount of trust and confidence. Interesting. So this might actually be a problem for Democrats because, well, Democrats, aka the state media, this might be a problem for the media because independents don't really have a great deal of confidence in them. And that might be something that they really need to turn around if they actually want to use the media to continue to win elections. They're either going to have to change their stances or change their approach. And since I doubt we're ever going to see them change their stances, they're just going to have to change their approaches and they're going to have to become less transparent. Let's see here. So conservatives, yeah, they really don't like the media. None of them. The old ones especially don't. Moderate Republican, percentage of Republicans, education, no college graduate, independent, Republicans. Yeah, so okay, bottom line. Americans' confidence in the media has been anemic for nearly 2 decades, and Gallup's latest findings further document that distrust. The current level of public trust in the media's full, fair, and accurate reporting of the news is the second lowest on record. This new confidence reading follows Gallup's historically low confidence in both TV and newspapers in June and a new low in December's annual rating of the honesty and ethics of television reporters. Wow. Newspaper reporters received similarly low ratings in the same poll. Partisans remain sharply divided in their views of the media, right? Makes sense to me, with most Democrats versus few Republicans trusting it. These divisions are entrenched and show no signs of abating. There you go. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I don't see any signs of that abating either. And honestly, the fact that people haven't trusted the media since 2001 is really not surprising to me either. That's about the time that I started paying attention to it and being like, it seems like they're not telling us the truth. Maybe they should start doing that. Let's see, somebody says Watergate, top days of journalism. Interesting. I need to know more about Watergate. Sam says, no Andy, no peace. I'm really hoping that we can do a Saturday morning live stream with Andy tomorrow since we're kind of set up now here in our new home. We have like 10 Watergates a day now. Yeah, there's that one guy who just gets up whenever Trump did anything and screeched about how it was worse than Watergate. Someone once told me to always ask about the news. Why is this being presented to me? That's a great question. Really good question. That's a wonderful one for reading the news. I want to do like a whole course where we go through like why the news is being presented to us now, why with this tone, what they're not reporting, why the headline looks this way, if they make changes and then don't tell you. You can gauge the honesty on how clear and upfront they are with fixing their mistakes. If they don't go back and tweet about it and put the correction right up underneath the title, then you know that they're not interested in clarity. I'm a recession denier. There will be no recession. We're going to skip right to full-on depression 2.0. Yeah, that's what I said too. I was like, yeah, I don't think we're going to have a recession. I think we're going straight for depression 2.0. It's going to be interesting. Really great time to be planning to start a family, so I wish us the best. There's a meme that no one has legitimate criticism of Trump and the left makes noise as the right mocks. The reality gets lost in the noise. Yeah, 100%. Both sides are circuses. Yep. Marcus Tullius Cicero talked about how the problem wasn't per se in the bread and the circuses, but in the fact that people no longer cared very much about their culture. Well, all of you guys here and me especially care very strongly about our culture. We really want to preserve it. So I'm honestly hoping that we can make a change in that regard going forward if we know exactly who the enemies are. They are not our neighbors. They are not our friends. They're not people with whom we disagree politically. On that tweet, I even had responses talking about, oh, my neighbor voted for Biden. I think that makes him my enemy. And I'm like, I don't think it does, because lots of people who voted for Biden changed their minds about him. A lot of them came around. A lot of them see what's happening, and they're like, oh, this is terrible. I really wish that I hadn't done that, and I'm not going to vote for Democrats next time. So they're not your enemies. They may be misled, and I do think that we have our work cut out for us as far as making sure that people are fully informed about the way that the American government is supposed to run, because it's a really neat system. It takes into consideration every aspect and every weakness of human nature, and this is something that Scott Adams talks about Democrats being really bad at doing. I think he's correct, and I don't think that Democrats understand human motivations, human incentives, or human shortcomings, because anyone who's truly idealistic isn't taking actual humanity into account, I think. And I think that I will wrap it there. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this Friday night. Thanks for taking time away from your pizza. Can I just ask, what is a true American? America is a wonderful place where anyone can come from another country and swear allegiance to a certain set of values and then move forward in pursuit of what most would call the American dream of performing, all your own work, doing all your own research, making sure that you're pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. I know, we've heard it. It's all old news. That's a true American. And the great thing about this country is that anyone can do it. That's why we're so different from countries that are based on a race or a religion. I think that's a wonderful thing. Potatoes for Seamus. Hi, Linda. Hello, potatoes. All the knowledge and history of humanity in the palm of your hand, and we collectively use it for prawn and selfies. That is correct. Also, cat videos, to be fair. All right. Oh, you got a super chat in on Timcast IRL. Good times. Happy to hear it. Somebody says, hello, hello, hello. Stop talking and say hello to me, Sour. How am I supposed to say hello to you if I stop talking? Guys, we're so close to getting 4,000 real watch hours, and I'm so excited. That's why we don't have super chats right now, and I can't wait until we do, because I really want to hear what you guys are most excited about. And I think that super chats are a really great way to kind of separate out people who really, really have something important to say, like Ghidorah King. Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. I responded to you already. No worries. So he says, good luck. Looks like you got your audio issue fixed. I did. I know what the problem is now. Live and learn. This is a problem that neither Andy nor I had dealt with before, and it's partly an equipment thing, so. All right, guys, I am going to end it here. Thank you so much for joining me. I've had a blast this Friday night. Andy's in one last meeting, and then I think we're going to go, and he's going to rollerblade like he has every night since the beginning of the year. So, good times. Hopefully we can also, we were going to go shopping for something. Oh, we need to find pumpkin, because I think we're going to make pumpkin bars. That would be something really fun to live stream, too. Maybe next time. Got to get that set up for sure. All right, until next time. Bye, guys.